Ivon and Inisha Fowler have been missing for nearly 20 years. And even more concerning than that, they weren't even reported missing until 10 years after they had last been seen. This story is confusing and frustrating and heartbreaking, but I believe their story should be shared and told so one day we can maybe find them or find out what happened to them. My name is Lauren Elizabeth, and I hope you'll let me share this story with you. Twins Ivon and Inisha Fowler were born on October 23, 1998, in Braddock, Pennsylvania. Ivon entered the world first at 8:35 p.m., with his sister Inisha following at 9:03 p.m. They're the children of Patricia Fowler and Daquan Lyons. At that time, in 1998, Patricia Fowler had 5 children, 4 of which were with Daquan Lyons. Aisha Fowler, Patricia's oldest child and only from a previous partner, was 7 at the time of the twins' birth. Raven was age 2, Daquan, named for his father, was 14 months, and of course the newborn twins, Ivon and Inisha. The family lived in Braddock, a town in Pennsylvania just outside of Pittsburgh. Daquan Lyons had spent a lot of time in and out of prison, and while he was not in prison, he was allegedly dividing his time between Patricia Fowler and another woman with whom he had had 2 other children. From what I can tell, Daquan did not always live with the family, but he would remain a consistent part of his children's life whenever he was able to. He's also said he's very close with Aisha, Patricia's oldest daughter, and he says he considers her his stepdaughter despite never officially marrying Patricia. In November of 1999, just after their first birthday, Ivon and Inisha would become older siblings when Patricia gave birth to her 6th child, a son named Ivon Fowler. And the family would grow again the following year, in November of 2000, when Akira Fowler was born. Not too long after Akira was born, the then 2-year-old Ivon suffered a pretty serious injury. According to Patricia, she was bathing her sons, 3-year-old Daquan and 2-year-old Ivon, and stepped away from the tub for a moment. At that point, Daquan tried to get out of the tub, and in doing so, he accidentally turned on the hot water faucet, scalding Ivon, who was still in the tub. Apparently, this incident took place on November 8, 2000. However, according to medical records, Patricia did not seek medical attention for Ivon until the following day, November 9th, at around 3 p.m. Ivon was then taken by ambulance and admitted to the burn unit of Mercy Hospital in Pittsburgh. Ivon sustained severe burns, covering over 46% of his body. He remained in hospital for 21 days, and on November 30th he was transferred to the Children's Institute in Pittsburgh. On December 13th, Ivon was sent home. His father, Daquan, recalls that when Ivon returned home, he was wrapped in bandages and covered in scabs all over. Children, Youth, and Family Services became involved with the Fowler family after Ivon's scalding incident. From what I can tell, this was the Fowler family's first encounter with CYF, although because the details of their records are not publicly available, I can't be certain of that. What we do know is that CYF deemed the scalding incident to be accidental, and it was not investigated further by CYF or directed to any other authorities. Ivon, Inisha, and all the other children were, of course, left in Patricia's care at this time. It's not too long after this that records of Ivon and Anisha's existence seemed to fade away. The 2 were never enrolled in any school. Daquan, their father, says he can't remember seeing Ivon again not too long after his return from the hospital in 2000. He last remembers seeing Inisha at a family barbecue in 2001 when she would have been 2.5. Ivon was not there at this time. At that time, Patricia had told Daquan that Ivon was safely with either her mother or her sister. Didn't think twice about this or worry about the thought that Ivon was being shipped off to other relatives. He himself had largely been raised by his own grandmother, and Patricia was now overwhelmed, raising 7 children and often dealing with them on her own. Now, I am personally a little confused about the either mother or sister part. I'm not sure if Patricia didn't know which of the 2 Ivon was with, or if Daquan wasn't sure or didn't remember which of the 2 Patricia had said. I've thought it could be possible that perhaps the mom and sister lived together, but if that were the case, then why wouldn't they say Ivon was with Patricia's mother and sister as opposed to mother or sister? So I don't really know the specifics there. I don't know why they didn't know which one had Ivon, but Daquan believed Ivon to be safe in the care of a relative at that time. In the subsequent years following Ivon's scalding injury, Children, Youth, and Family Services would become involved with the Fowler family again for various different reasons, mostly pertaining to Patricia's failure to make her children attend school. In 2003, the Fowler family was visited by CYF because Ivon, who was 6.5 at the time, had not been attending school, which, of course, Patricia is legally required to ensure that she does attend. I have a lack of any details of what happened there, but no children were removed from the home at the time. Another truancy issue arose the following year in 2004, this time pertaining to a then 6-year-old Datejuan. In between these two CYF visits, Patricia's 8th child, a son, Irene Fowler, was born. In 2004, around the time of Datejuan's truancy issue, the Fowler family now contained a total of 8 children: Aisha, Ivon, Datejuan, Ivon, Inisha, Akira, and Irene. And there is a lot of confusion, but from what I can tell, neither Ivon or Inisha were even living with the family at this time. Datejuan Lyon's mother, Charlene Miller, so the grandmother of the twins, hasn't been able to see the twins since they were toddlers either, saying whenever she'd come by to visit, Patricia would tell her the twins were either with her mother or sister, or were busy or otherwise unavailable and could not come to see their grandmother. As for Patricia herself, she can never seem to keep her story straight about where her twins are, or even when it was that she last saw them. I believe the most frequently or most recently stated claim is that she last saw them when they were 7 years old, but we will get into Patricia's story, or rather stories, in a little bit. In September of 2005, the Fowler family grew even bigger again when Patricia gave birth to her 9th child, a little girl named Asia Fowler. So as I mentioned briefly before, Datejuan Lyons had spent some time in and out of prison. This was usually for small offenses. However, in October of 2005, shortly after the birth of his youngest daughter, Datejuan would commit his most serious offense yet. While at a bar in Broddock, he got into an altercation with a man named Jonathan Smith. The altercation escalated, and Datejuan ended up shooting Jonathan in the chest. Jonathan was later pronounced dead at the hospital. On June 2nd of 2006, almost a year after the shooting, Datejuan pled guilty to a third-degree murder charge and was sentenced to 10 years in a state prison. So at this point in 2006, when Datejuan Lyons begins his 10-year prison sentence, the Fowler family has a total of 9 children, and from what I can tell, Ivon and Inisha are both not living with the family. So it seems like in 2006, no one knows where Ivon and Inisha are, and in 2006 they would have been 8 years old. It's insane and frustrating that they seem to be missing and no one seemed to notice or care about them. Datejuan, their father, last remembers seeing Ivon in 2000, shortly after his return from the hospital, and Inisha in 2001, but hasn't seen either of them since. Their grandmother, Charlene Miller, says she hasn't seen them since they were young toddlers either, and they would have been 8 years old in 2006, and it's just so frustrating to think that no one seemed to care about their whereabouts. Although it was actually in 2006 when CYF first seemed to notice their absence. A CYF caseworker was at the Fowler home because of yet another truancy issue, this time pertaining to Aisha, the oldest child, who was 14 at the time. This caseworker noticed that Ivon and Inisha were not present, and Patricia told them they were with a relative in South Carolina. CYF then tried to verify that Ivon and Inisha were safely with a relative in South Carolina and failed to do so. After failing to verify the twins' safe whereabouts, they told Patricia she had to produce the twins or they would be going to authorities. And then, apparently, Patricia did produce the twins, and a caseworker saw the twins safe and alive. However, this is where things get a little weird. That is no longer actually considered a valid sighting of the twins. This is written in the CYF file alongside the words, "not an official note." And years later, that CYF caseworker would claim that he doesn't remember writing that note, and claims that he believes the kids he saw were not Ivon and Inisha. I'm a little unclear on exactly what the CYF caseworker now states. I've seen some reports say that he does not remember seeing twins at all, but I believe what is accurate, he does remember seeing kids, but looking back on it now, is confident that they were not Ivon and Inisha. It's also worth noting that the boy presented as Ivon had no scars, which Ivon likely would have, due to being burned over 46% of his body years prior to this. Honestly, that's kind of confusing and I'm a little unsure. However, what we do know is that 2006 CYF sighting of the twins is no longer considered valid or legitimate. Additionally, in August of 2006, so that's 1 month before that CYF report, Patricia and her children had moved into a new rental home. On the agreement to rent, Patricia was asked to list all of the children that would be living with her. She listed Aisha, Ivon, Datejuan, Ikira, Ethan, Irene, and Asia. All of the children except for Ivon and Inisha. Additionally, the landlord that rented that home to her for the next 2 years said he got to know the family quite well, but never knew or saw Ivon and Inisha. The Fowler family moved again in 2008 to another rental home, where they would stay for the following 7 years. And similarly, the landlord there has claimed that his wife came to know the family quite well over those 7 years, yet she was never introduced to or ever saw Ivon and Inisha. So it does look like to me that Ivon and Inisha were definitely not living with Patricia in 2006 at the time of this CYF weird, alleged, now not valid sighting of the twins. It's believed that Patricia just found 2 local kids that looked similar enough to Ivon and Inisha and similar enough to one another to pass off as her kids, which is really disturbing and disheartening to think that she would do that and that it would work. The next encounter the Fowler family would have wouldn't be until 8 years later, in 2014, when Datewan Fowler, 16 at the time, was caught in possession of alcohol. Due to his age at the time, CYF would have been alerted and paid a visit to the family. We don't know what happened there as far as the details, but the twins' absence was seemingly not noticed at that time because nothing was done about it. Another 2 years would go by, and in 2016, CYF visited the Fowler family again, this time due to allegations of medical neglect pertaining to Patricia's 4 youngest children, Ethan, Ikira, Irene, and Asia, all of whom had missed numerous medical appointments. Apparently the girls, Ikira and Asia, both have eye conditions that, if left untreated, could lead to blindness. The boys, Ethan and Irene, also have medical conditions. Both are autistic and nonverbal, and I believe either both or one of them has muscular dystrophy and one of them is in a wheelchair. I'm unsure of the details there due to scarce information, but what we do know is that all 4 children had serious medical conditions, missed numerous medical appointments, and on June 20th of 2016, they were removed from the Fowler home and put into emergency care. At this time, the CYF caseworker dealing with the Fowler family was Deborah McAllister Johnson. Deborah found herself perplexed with the Fowler family. There was clear and obvious medical neglect, and a case file on the family described as 2 monstrous boxes full of files. But the house was clean and tidy, air-conditioned, the refrigerator well-stocked, and all 4 children seemed happy and did not want to leave the home. Due to their serious medical conditions, Deborah had no question that Irene and Ethan would not be going back to the Fowler home, at least for the time being. However, Deborah was considering letting the girls, Ikira and Asia, go back to their mother. But as Deborah was poring through the Fowler family's voluminous case file, she saw references to twins, who should be 17 now. But she had not seen twins in the home, and from what Deborah could tell, it seemed like no one had seen these twins for at least a decade. Baffled and perplexed, Deborah McAllister Johnson brought the case to authorities, and an investigation was finally opened into the twins who had now been missing for over a decade. The Penn Hills Police Department were now finally on the search for Ivon and Inisha Fowler, but because their disappearance had gone unreported for so long, the trail was already cold. Their first logical step would be talking to their mother, Patricia Fowler, but for a simple question, Patricia has never had a simple answer to the whereabouts of her twins. Her story is consistent about one thing. She insists Ivon and Inisha are still alive. However, she has lied to authorities numerous times, and her stories never seem to check out. Initially, she claimed they were in South Carolina with a couple named Corey Brooks and Cheryl Walker, friends of hers. She even provided police with a phone number and an address where she could contact these 2 at. However, when police attempted to use this number or go to the address to contact them, they discovered it was not the correct address or phone number, and it was just a total lie. Apparently, authorities at one point did find Cheryl Walker, who was now called Cheryl Avery. However, she claimed she had never met the twins. I'm not entirely sure if this woman even knew Patricia. From what I gather, she did know Patricia, I believe an old friend or an acquaintance. However, she claimed to have never met her twins. So she obviously was not claiming to have ever had them in her care. Patricia then changed her story to say that the twins were with Corey Brooks, the same guy she had said before, but now a different woman. However, she'd end up retracting that statement. She then said that the twins were with yet another friend of hers in yet another location, and would retract that statement as well. Then, kicking things up a notch, Patricia told police that a man she had known for a few years introduced her to a woman named Barbara. She then sold Ivon and Inisha to Barbara for $2,000 each. She never elaborated as to why Barbara allegedly wanted her children or why Patricia would sell her kids. However, when police informed her that it's very illegal to sell children, Patricia retracted that statement and insisted that she did not sell her children. Police obviously looked into this, but apparently were not able to find Barbara or any leads or any evidence toward this idea. Patricia Fowler can never seem to settle on one story, and of all the various stories she's told, authorities can't find evidence to verify that any of them are true, and the twins are still nowhere to be found. In August of 2016, shortly after the investigation began, Patricia Fowler was charged with concealing the whereabouts of children as well as obstruction. She was additionally facing fraud charges for having collected over $50,000 in welfare benefits pertaining to the twins, who were not in her care at that time. From what I can tell, Patricia was allowed to be free on $500 bond and a promise to appear for her later court date. Patricia and her son, Daquan, would appear in an interview on WTAE News, and Patricia would tell her story, which happened, yet again, to be a different story than any stories she had already told authorities.
Are your children alive?
Yes. And I did not sell them.
Bottom line, what is your ultimate truth about Ivon and Inisha?
That they were a friend of mine.
Where?
In Georgia.
Fowler says her friend, Cheryl Willis, offered to take the children when they were 7 because she was overwhelmed as a single mother caring for 6 kids.
I had contacted them throughout the years. Over the year, I had contact through them. But when they moved, it's like I don't have no information about the move. Being I get the cops the number, and it's up to them. They got to call and get all the information from this friend.
So now Patricia says they're with a friend of hers named Cheryl Willis in Georgia. If you remember, she did previously tell police about a woman named Cheryl Walker in South Carolina, but that was Cheryl Walker in South Carolina, and this is Cheryl Willis in Atlanta, Georgia. Although Patricia did say that Cheryl Willis lived in North Carolina at one point, but again, that's North Carolina, and Cheryl Walker lives in South Carolina. So, 2 different stories. And apparently, Cheryl Willis moved away, and at that point, Patricia lost contact with Cheryl as well as her 2 children. And a note there, I mean, if you lose contact with someone who is looking after your underage children, you don't just say, oh, well, I guess I lost contact with them. If someone was looking after my kids and I did not have contact for them, I would be tracking them down, and if I failed to do so, I would be going to the authorities. But in any event, that is what Patricia's saying. The authorities said that Cheryl Willis was not a name they had ever heard before, and they had not ever heard this version of the story before. Of course, police looked into this as well, and once again were able to find no leads or any trace of Ivon and Inisha. During the same interview with WTAE News, Daquan Fowler, the twins' older brother, would actually make a pretty stunning and shocking claim.
Her son, Daquan, who is 1 year older than the twins, says he's been talking to his brother on social media for the last week and claims Ivon is aware police are trying to determine that he and Inisha are okay.
He is aware, because he was in Pittsburgh, but he's leaving.
He's in Pittsburgh today?
Yeah, but he's going back to Georgia.
And did you tell him?
I told him to call the Penn Hills police station, and he said he will.
And sure enough, shortly after that interview, Penn Hills Police Department would receive a message from Ivon Fowler, allegedly. I've seen some conflicting reports on how exactly this contact was made. Some say it was a text message and then later a phone call. Others say it was only a text message. But either way, Penn Hills Police Department made contact with someone claiming to be Ivon Fowler. Ivon told Penn Hills Police Department that both he and his sister Inisha were living safely in Atlanta. However, police were, of course, able to track these messages and discovered they came from a cell phone located in Pennsylvania. More specifically, they came from Daquan Fowler's cell phone. Daquan, who was 18 at the time, was of course charged with obstruction for lying to and misleading the police and for impersonating his brother. He was taken into custody at this time, and I'm unsure of whether or not he was held or released to await trial. I did see one report saying that he was unable to post a $500 bond and was thus held to await trial. However, I didn't see anywhere else stating that, so I'm not 100% certain. Daquan Fowler has said that he pretended to be his missing brother in order to get authorities to stop bothering his mother and their family. Daquan's defense lawyer has also claimed that he is fiercely loyal to his mother, Patricia. Now, while all this is going on, and Patricia and Daquan are awaiting their days in court, the Penn Hills Police Department are still working hard searching for Ivon and Inisha. But when they're looking for 2 kids who have now been missing for over a decade, there's not much for them to look at. They tried looking at all the different stories Patricia had told them with all the different people in all the various different locations, but no leads came from any of that. They also, of course, tried to find leads on Patricia's claim that she had sold the children, but once again had no luck. In 2016, authorities released this age-progressed photo of what the twins might look like at age 17. Police with cadaver dogs searched a North Broddock home, a home where Patricia and her kids had once lived. Police believe this to be the last home where Patricia lived, where Ivon and Inisha were still in her care. However, this search unfortunately yielded nothing. Police also searched through databases, looked for school records for the twins, or any record that would connect to the twins, but yet again, nothing was found. A few months after she had been released on bond, Patricia Fowler was set to appear in court in January of 2017. However, when she failed to appear on that court date, she was taken into custody a few days later on January 28th of 2017. It was May of 2017 when Patricia Fowler had her day in court, and frustratingly, Allegheny County Judge Thomas Flaherty dismissed most charges against her. The judge ruled that there was insufficient evidence to pursue the charges of child endangerment, obstruction of justice, or concealing the whereabouts of children, so all of those charges were dropped. However, one count of unsworn falsification was upheld, and she wasn't sentenced for that until a few months later. Apparently, Patricia could not be charged with endangering the children because no one knew the whereabouts of the children, therefore there could be no evidence that Patricia had endangered them. It was also noted that the 2000 incident of Ivon's scalding had been cleared by CYF as not being abuse. It was also pointed out by Patricia's defense how CYF had missed multiple opportunities to notice and report the twins as missing. It was also brought up in court that the boy Patricia had once presented as Ivon to a CYF caseworker did not have any scars like Ivon would have from his scalding injury. It seems to me like they were kind of trying to say that because CYF had failed multiple times, that Patricia was not at fault for her own neglect of the children. But myself and others would disagree with that. I'm also a little unsure as to why the obstruction and concealment charges were dropped specifically, but once again the judge ruled that there was not enough evidence to substantiate these charges and they were dropped. However, others, including myself, think that Patricia's lies and multiple contradictions when talking to the authorities, as well as the simple fact that she does not know the whereabouts of two children she's legally responsible for, should be enough to uphold those, but in any event, the charges were dropped. Later, in July of 2017, Patricia Fowler pled guilty to that remaining charge of unsworn falsification and received 4 years probation. Patricia's guilty plea was actually made as part of a plea bargain, and in exchange for her guilty plea, all the charges against her son, Datejuan, for impersonating his brother, were dropped. As far as Patricia's fraud charges for collecting welfare benefits on behalf of the twins, she pled guilty to that as well, and as a result was ordered to pay $57,000 in restitution. So all in all, Patricia Fowler was sentenced to 4 years probation and ordered to pay back $57,000 in restitutions. Datejuan Fowler's charges were all dropped, and Ivon and Inisha are still nowhere to be found. The Penn Hills Police Department continue to search for them, with no luck finding any leads. Officers working the case have sadly said they believe they're looking for bodies at this point. It's entirely possible that Ivon and Inisha are alive and out there, but with the amount of lies and shadiness in this case, and the fact it's been so long, the situation doesn't look very good. The last time we have official records that Ivon or Inisha even existed was in 2000 from Ivon's hospital records when the twins were only 2. There was never any record of them being enrolled in any school, and you may have noticed you've only seen one picture of them in this video, and that's due to the fact that there is only one photo of them. Their father, Datejuan, says he doesn't remember seeing Ivon ever again not too long after his return from the hospital. He says he last remembers seeing Inisha in 2001 at a family barbecue. Patricia has claimed to have last seen them in 2005 or 2006, but with her various stories, I don't know if that holds very much weight. Apparently, at one point, Datejuan Fowler, the twins' older brother, had told authorities that he remembers Ivon being sick, and that a short time after, he wasn't there. He remembers the same thing happening to Inisha not too long after. The oldest Fowler child, Aisha, has similar memories, telling police she remembered her younger siblings simply as gone one day. Charlene Miller, the twins' paternal grandparents, has also said that she doesn't remember seeing the twins since they were toddlers, and whenever she would attempt to see them, Patricia would make up excuses, claiming they were with her mother, her sister, other relatives, or that they were busy, unable to come to the door. Charlene was also quoted taking major issue with the fact that Patricia did not seek medical attention for her 4 youngest children, and Charlene has said that she believes Patricia, quote, did something to those kids. And of course we know that Patricia Fowler has never been able to keep a straight story about the twins, and of all the various different stories she has told police, they haven't been able to verify that any of them are true. Of the 4 kids who were removed from the Fowler home in 2016, Ethan and Irene, who both suffer from autism and muscular dystrophy, were put into a residential foster care home, I believe a place that is very equipped to deal with their extra medical needs. The girls, Akira and Asia, were put into the care of an older half-sister. I'm unsure if this means Aisha Fowler, because she is, of course, their older half-sister, but I know Datejuan Fowler had 2 kids from another woman, and I don't know any details on them, so it's possible that the girls could have been sent to live with one of those 2, I'm not quite sure. And this information was as of 2017, so I'm not sure where any of those 4 children are now. Ethan and Akira are both over the age of 18, so legal adults now. However, Irene and Asia would still be minors, so I just hope that wherever they are, it is in a safe and loving environment. As for Ivon and Inisha, they are still missing, and from what I can tell, authorities have no leads, at least none that they have released to the public. The investigation for Ivon and Inisha remains ongoing, but it looks like there have been no breaks in the case. As it stands right now, Ivon and Inisha disappeared into thin air, and no one has seen them in nearly 20 years. There's barely even any record that they existed in the first place. This case is extremely frustrating and upsetting to me. It seems like everybody failed these kids. Children, Youth, and Family Services had multiple interactions with this family. Firstly, they failed to do anything after Ivon's 2000 scalding incident. And sure, serious injuries do happen accidentally. It doesn't always mean a parent needs to have their children taken away. However, also given the fact that Patricia allegedly waited a full day to seek any medical attention for Ivon, I feel like some red flags should have been raised there. And of course, so many other visits from CYF over the years where the twins' absence seemingly went unnoticed. In 2006, when someone did notice the twins' absence and asked Patricia to produce the twins, they failed at verifying they were the twins. They said, sure, we've seen the twins, they're safe, but now years later they're saying, oh wait, actually those weren't the twins. And I mean, even if they were the twins, that's still 10 years before they were reported missing. So at bare minimum, it's been 10 years, likely more. It's just so frustrating and insane that so many years no one noticed these 2 kids were not there when they should have been. As for what may have happened to Ivon and Inisha, I genuinely have no idea, and honestly, there's not really any evidence to point in the direction of any theories. As I've said, police working the case do unfortunately believe they're looking for bodies. However, as far as I know, there's not any solid proof of that. It's just the fact that there is so much shadiness and the fact it's been so long. Personally, I do unfortunately think that there's a large chance that they are dead. Perhaps some sort of accident. We know that Ivon was allegedly, according to his father, last seen in 2000, not too long after his return from the hospital with his scalding incident. And we also know that Patricia has a bit of a history of medical neglect. And additionally, Datejuan Fowler, the older brother, said that he remembers, and he's only a year older than the twins, so he would have been quite young, but he remembers Datejuan being sick and then one night not there anymore. So perhaps Ivon's injuries from the scalding incident had not healed properly, there was some sort of infection, Patricia never sought medical attention, this worsened, and Ivon ended up passing away, and Patricia hid the body and the evidence. As for Inisha, I'm not sure exactly how she fits into this theory. Perhaps she got sick of some unrelated reason, Patricia did not seek medical attention and she passed away as well. Or perhaps more sinister, if Inisha wouldn't stop asking about her twin brother, maybe Patricia wanted her to stop talking about Ivon all the time. I also do think it's a possibility that Patricia was telling the truth when she told police that she sold her children. If she were lying, why would she want to make up a lie that incriminates her? Unless Patricia genuinely thought that selling her children was something that was totally legitimate and legal for her to do. And honestly, I just can't fathom any person legitimately believing that selling your children is a legal thing to do. I mean, maybe she thought it was like the same as adoption, but I have a hard time believing she thought, you know, that was like, oh, I'll just lie and say I sold them and then everything will be fine. That seems weird to me. So maybe she just thought it was, you know, I'll just tell them the truth, and then changed her mind and, of course, retracted the statement. And she has insisted that she did not sell her children. I am very confused as to why she would come up with this story as a lie. I've also thought those two theories could be kind of combined. Perhaps Ivon passed away of some sort of accident or some sort of infection related to his scalding injury, and then Inisha wouldn't stop talking about her brother all the time. Patricia was stressed, and she met this woman named Barbara who said, hey, I'll buy your daughter for $2,000, and Patricia was like, yeah, sure. She sold Inisha, and then, you know, later when she was talking to police, she thought, well, I don't want to tell them that Ivon died, but I know I sold Inisha, so I'll just tell them that I sold both of them. But again, I don't understand why she would lie about something that would incriminate her. But also, why would she tell the truth and then immediately retract it? It's all so bizarre to me. There's no real evidence to substantiate any theory. These are all just, of course, conjecture and my opinions. There's no evidence, and we do not know what happened to Ivon and Inisha, and we do not know where Ivon and Inisha are. No one has seen them in nearly 20 years now, and we don't know whether or not they're even alive or dead. As I mentioned earlier, police have released an age-progressed photo of the twins. They released that in 2016, so this photo is showing what the twins would have maybe looked like when they were aged 17. And if the twins are still alive today, they will have just turned 22 last October. Ivon Fowler will also likely have some sort of scarring due to his scalding incident as a toddler. If you know any information at all about the disappearance or the whereabouts of Ivon and Inisha Fowler, please get in contact with the Penn Hills Police Department. Their phone number is 412-798-2035, and that number will also be posted in the description of this video. If you think you know anything at all, please do not hesitate to contact them. Ivon and Inisha deserve justice. Whether they are still alive or not, their story needs to be told, and there are questions that need to be answered. Thank you so much for taking the time to watch this. If you'd like to see more true crime content and coverage of missing people, please subscribe to this channel. Thank you so much again for watching. Stay safe, everybody.